Hi, Dan.
Hi, Angie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Are you comfy there?
Yes, fine.
There's a little step stool there if you need it. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I'll
Okay.
leave you guys to it. Have fun.
Fine.
I currently put up this setup in my basement. I kind of look like every public access show out here that airs at like 3 in the afternoon.
It's amazing how much people are able to pull together, though. I think the degree of creativity lately has just been so wonderful.
That is, I was talking about this with another person I interviewed. People are at like one end of the spectrum or the other.
Yeah.
When it comes to creativity during quarantine. Either you feel like you have all the time in the world to create, you churn out at a mile a minute, or you're just completely feeling defeated and,
I know.
Can't get anything done.
That's why I think it's great to keep busy. The more, we're quarantined, the more we seem to get done here. Things we've wanted to do for a long time. And I've actually got Ruth to start writing a book, which I've been nagging for about 10 years. And she's made a start on it. You have to discipline yourself, don't you?
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Angie McCartney on the line with me from McCartney Studios. First of all, where are you from? Where are you broadcasting from today?
Playa del Rey. It's close to Los Angeles Airport in California.
Perfect. So you have a lot of those LA connections when it comes to putting together a studio setting, getting possible like productions.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Ruth and Martin have just made a commercial over the weekend, and I'll send you a copy later on how we can do a commercial for you if you need one without going out of the house, from stock footage that we've got and things we've shot before. So I'm hoping that, if people need to have a little commercial done, because you keep seeing new ones pop up on television, don't you?
I absolutely do. And that brings me to my next question. You do commercials, explainer videos for businesses. What is it that got you into that field? What interested you about those videos?
Funnily enough, we've always been around the music business since I got married to Paul McCartney's dad in 1964. And Ruth and I moved to America umpteen years ago. And after the Northridge earthquake, we moved out of Los Angeles because we lost everything, and we moved to Nashville. And during that time there, the internet was just beginning to emerge. And we got interested in it, and Ruth and Martin got a load of books out of the library and learned HTML. And then we started in a very small way. We started our little McCartney multimedia company. And I think one of our first customers was David Cassidy, who was a friend of ours. And Ruth got onto him and said, "You need a website." And he said, "What's a website?" And she said, "I'll build you one. Just send me your contacts and lots of information and old programs and photographs and your credit card number." And we were off and running. We did our first website.
That's kind of awesome. So you've been doing this, how many years have you been doing this?
20-something years. Yeah.
Technology has changed dramatically within the last 20-odd years. Has it been liberating, difficult, or both for you to adapt?
I would say both, actually. Yeah, because almost every morning when you get up, something has changed. My role in the company, I do bookkeeping and scheduling and just general paperwork, all the secretarial stuff. But Ruth and Martin are the brains of the outfit, creators. Martin's a graphic designer and producer, and they both do voiceovers, and Ruth does marketing and so on. So between the three of us, we all contribute something. But almost every day when we get up and look online, something new has come up. So there's a learning curve going on all the time. Thank God for Google, that's what I say.
Absolutely. And how do you keep on with your continuing education? YouTube tutorials, Skillshare, online classes, physical classes?
That's right. Yes. And there are a lot of these very good master classes from film directors, filmmakers, writers, choreographers. And you can find, a master class for whatever you need to know. And it just takes also that discipline to hunker down and stay with it and read things over and over until you've really got it embedded in your brain. I mean, my brain's a lot older than theirs. I'm 90. So it takes me sometimes a little longer. I have to read things twice and make sure I take it all in and understand. But Ruth and Martin are real whiz kids, the two of them. And,
what do you think, as somebody who's been in the business for over 2 decades, what do you consider to be the main difference between an amateur and a professional?
I think maybe the dedication of an amateur is, if it's a good amateur that wants to become a professional, the dedication and discipline is what matters. You get up some mornings and you think, don't feel like doing that. But
Right.
You've got to. Especially now, while we're all sequestered at home. And you've got to make yourself get dressed every morning and have a shower and put your lipstick on. Well, you don't have to put your lipstick on unless you want to.
I mean, I always wonder what my lips would look in a greater shade of red, but that's for another day.
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, once we're done recording, we'll get into that.
Yeah, sure. I do think one of the main things to focus on is keeping a sense of humor and a sense of positivity. And I try to put on Facebook every morning. I think I've got 5 different Facebook pages. Try to put something funny every morning. And I've got a lot of relatives in Australia and England and Germany, and they send me funny one-liners, and I share them out every day. It's amazing how many people get back to me and say, wow, I needed that. You made me smile. Oh, I'm touching my face. You're not supposed to do that.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'll edit that out.
Okay, fine. Fine.
You mentioned, funny things that you find on the internet and share with other people. Meme culture has become a huge thing in the last 10 years.
Yes.
As someone who has been around a little longer, what is your reaction to this new way of communication?
I think it's great as long as people don't start to tear each other down. I mean, I've got 5,000 Facebook friends on each of my pages. And as soon as somebody starts knocking somebody else, I unfriend them because
Sure.
I don't want that. I really don't. I don't think that was what it was originally intended for. It was a means of people being in touch and, like the local village newspaper. And it's grown from there, obviously. But some people...
Does that include politics?
Oh, yes. I won't get involved in politics.
Thank you. Thank you.
Not at all, yeah. I do a little live half hour every Tuesday morning on Angie McCartney Facebook page. And I always say this is a politically free zone, because I think if you let yourself start to get dragged into that, I've got friends on both sides of the aisle, and we've got clients on both sides of the aisle, and everybody is entitled to their own opinions, but keep it to yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I have my opinions. I, am obviously voting for a particular person this coming November, but I keep it off of my Facebook because
yes.
I'm just of the opinion that nobody on the internet has ever changed the mind of anybody else on the internet.
No, that's right. Yeah, it's no good trying to force your opinions on other people, is it? So it's a question of, my favorite song is the Monty Python song, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life.
Absolutely.
And that's my philosophy, and I try to stick to it.
Now, you brought something up that I admittedly was unaware of. I thought the last name was a coincidence, but if I'm not mistaken, you are Paul McCartney's mother-in-law.
No, I'm his stepmother.
Or stepmother, excuse me.
His wife Nancy's mother, if she was still alive, she would be his mother-in-law. I'm his stepmother. I married his dad in 1964.
I just got the family tree operation fucked up. It's me, it's not you, I promise.
Oh, that's fine. It's quite refreshing.
So what was that experience like, spending all these years around one of the greatest musicians of all time and having that close relationship with him?
I was a widow with 4-year-old Ruth. You saw Ruth at the beginning of our get-together here. She's 60 now and I'm 90. And my first husband was killed in a car crash when she was 2. And life was pretty tough in those days. And the earnings rule in England, you were only allowed to earn £5 a week in wages. If you earned any more, it was deducted from your widow's pension.
Oh, wow.
say if I got £5.10 from my boss, I'd have to go to the Social Security office, show them my pay packet, and they'd deduct it off the next window. So it was really tough. And funnily enough, one day my sister Joan, who was no longer with us, she was in a little local shop in Liverpool, and a man came running in. He said, "Sorry, folks, to interrupt. I'm in a great hurry. I'm lost, and I'm looking for Broad Lane Cemetery. I have to be at a funeral." So my sister spoke up and said, "Oh, go out of here and turn left and whatever." And he said, "You're not Angela, are you?" And she said, "No, but I've got a sister named Angela." He said, "Well, you sound just like her." So he scribbled his phone number on a piece of paper and said, "Get Angela to ring us. I'm Mike Robbins." And I mean, that didn't mean a thing to my sister, but Mike and Bet had been friends of mine for years, and we'd lost touch. So we duly got in touch, and I went to visit her, and she had a couple of kids, and I had little Ruth. And at one stage she said to me, "You should meet Uncle Jim." And I said, "Who's Uncle Jim?" She said, "Well, don't you remember years and years ago, Uncle Jim and Auntie Mary and their two little boys used to come visit me?" And I said, "Oh yeah, vaguely." And she said, "Well, you know who Paul is?" I said, "No." She said, "He's Paul McCartney of the Beatles." I said, "Wow," never made the connection. So she eventually arranged to take me to go and visit her Uncle Jim, and who was a widower, and Paul had bought him a lovely house on Merseyside across the other side of the river from Liverpool. And we just hit it off. And he was lonely. He was sort of penned in because the fans were always outside and stealing the gravel pellets off the driveway because Paul's car had driven over them and things like that. Cutting bits off the hedges and the trees. And
you can have all the money in the world, you can still be a terrible driver.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And so he and he said, "Come on over another time and bring the baby with you," as she was then. And so we arranged this, and he sent a car for me, which I thought was a really big deal in those days. And I came out of work and went to the nursery where Ruth used to go every day, picked her up, went through the Mersey Tunnel to visit Jim. And she and he just hit it off right away. And bear in mind, he was, what was he then? I think he was 72 and she was 4, nearly 5. And yet he had all the patience in the world with her and teased her and played games, and they went out in the back garden together and they just hit it off. And I think that was the testing thing for Jim, to see whether we should further our relationship, So eventually that evening I put Ruth to bed, and Jim and I were sitting chatting in the living room, and we had a bottle of champagne and we had lots of pots of tea. And Jim said, "So why don't you and I just talk about, what should we do with our future? I mean, you're lonely, I'm lonely. I'm living all alone here in this big, lovely house, rattling around by myself." So he said, "Do you want to be my housekeeper? Do you want to live with me? Do you want to get married?" And I said, "Well, I'd only go for marriage with this little 4-year-old." Because I was very old-fashioned in those days. I probably would have jumped at it now, anything. But I didn't want the thought of being the widow, the young widow marrying the elderly gentleman who was in a much better financial position than I was. So, he said, "Fine, okay." Well, he said, "Paul takes care of me financially, so I'll need to talk it over with him." And just then the phone rang, and it was Paul. And Jim went out in the hall to answer the phone, and I heard him say, "Hello, son." "Yes, she is." "Yes, I have." "Yes, we are." So I gathered that the questions were, is she there? Have you asked her? And is she going to? So he shouted to me, "Ange, come talk to Paul." Well, of course, my knees were knocking, so I walked to the phone, finally to speak to this very famous young person. And we chit-chatted on the phone, and Paul said, "Well, I know you're staying the night, so I'll jump in the car in London now and I'll drive up."